Hey guys, Berks here with another react. I didn't get a chance to do this on my stream today, and so we're going to be doing this live without chat. It's inside Star Citizen Gatac's back. I think that based on what I'm seeing, the Sulin is also in here, and the C1, the Storm, and then the anti-air version of the Storm. So the vehicle team dives into info, and I'm excited. Let's take a look. I love ships that do not look like airplanes. And so I'm really excited about this one.
The first time I saw the concept of the Sulin, I immediately went over to Ben Curtis and asked him if I could make it.
Very sad.
By myself.
It's cool. Are they saying one guy did this?
Schneider did the Raylan, and I scouted a lot
in
his old sketches and the first phase of the ship, and I found a pretty nice triangle sketch, and that's where we started from.
We really wanted to have this feeling of grandeur. It's a relatively small ship, but all its kind of stylings and its shape, language, and forms really are there to make it feel strong and impactful. And so we really tried to kind of push that as much as we can.
That is so cool. Is that how it lands? Yo, that is so cool.
The Gatac Syulen is Gatac's introduction to the civilian space market with a essentially starter ship from an alien race.
It's kind of really defining what that manufacturer is for us.
It has everything any player needs to take their first steps in the universe. It can carry cargo. It's got onboard living quarters and a good selection of weaponry for a starter to not die immediately when you get out into hostile space.
When the player first sees the Syulen, we really wanted it to feel kind of just super.
I'm pretty sure the specs, I'm going to pull them up while we're watching this, are on Urkel somewhere, but man, I wonder if this has a size 2 shield, because that is it's a big target.
Super imposing. It's got this amazing stance where it's kind of towering above you.
The Sulin is almost this monolithic structure that will appear in your hangar, unlike anything you'll have seen before. It's very dominating, almost Sith-like, dare I say it.
With its vertical design, it looks completely different to any other starter ship that we've brought out before.
You'll notice it's a very polished ship, very deliberate with all of its forms and shapes, but then when it comes to its mechanical structure, it's not like our manufacturers like Origin, where it's very high-end but exposed almost, more like Drake. So you'll see all the mechanisms, all the inner workings. As you approach the interior of the ship, you'll notice a little button on the side. You press that, and the wall of the exterior will cascade down into a set of stairs.
You'll be greeted by like this crazy Gravlev sort of animation where the sort of wall fractures and spreads out. Something rooted in the Xi'an lore about their trivial use of Gravlev tech, and just to be able to see it like sort of do something crazy that we can't do with most of the ships is really cool.
As you enter the ship, you'll be in what we call the airlock, or the ground floor, kind of like an engineering space where all the walls feel quite clean, quite sleek.
You'll get quite an unusual sense of the place because of the rock materials that you've got going on that feel very alien when you walk onto a spaceship.
All of the walls, the panels, fly out, separate, and reveal
really
these
cool.
crazy big component bays, an armor locker, and also a really cool weapon rack that pops out the wall using that cool grav tech we spoke about. In between two of those component bays, you'll notice the lift.
When I say that Star Citizen is a sci-fi sim, not a space sim, sci-fi sim, giving us the things to experience in space that we never will be able to because we're stuck in the 20th century, right? Man, this is the kind of things that I want out of the game. This is so freaking cool.
Embedded into the floor. It's got a really cool glass floor to it, and you'll notice a nice hover plate of Xi'an text, which we've kindly translated into English for you.
We wanted it to feel like it could be inhabited by both Xi'an and human. That was kind of like a design ethos we had. So you'll go on the elevator, which features both.
So once you use the lift to enter the habitation deck, you'll notice a really nice small space, quite simplistic, but that's kind of like how the Xi'an like it.
The Xi'an are very close to nature. We wanted to create this sort of like cave feeling in a couple of places. That was in the bed, and that's a really nice little area for you to lie down at the end of a journey.
It's really cool.
Kind of like a hab.
This thing's
almost,
got
like
everything.
The way it kind of is embedded into the wall. Still comfortable though, I can assure you.
It's a lot warmer, a lot more inviting, yet through its materials, it still feels like a bit alien. On your left, you've got a bathroom.
You're talking to Lloyd about.
You know what this is? This is a explorer ship. This thing should never really even see the light of PvP or maybe some light PvE. I did pull up the specs. It's got 2 size 1 shields. It's got 3 size 3s. And it's got 4, 8, 12 missiles, as well as a size 1 quantum drive and a size 1 cooler and power plant. So this still feels like an exploration ship to me. I'm curious to know how much QT fuel it has, because let me tell you what, this just feels like, honestly, kind of like a miniature 600i touring is what it feels like. The elevator, the locked off, closed off rooms, like upstairs and downstairs, doesn't feel like this is a ship you're going to jump in and out of very quickly. But there's purpose to each floor. I think that the design is super impressive. Everything's so compact. This is probably the most efficiently designed ship that we've ever seen in Star Citizen. Now, I don't know where the cargo goes on the sides. Is that what they were saying? That's cool. That's cool. Exposed cargo is definitely something that I'm not against. I think overall this looks really cool. Let's see what else they have to say.
About the bathroom, right?
The bathroom is, you could say complicated. I would say amazing in terms of design. It's definitely over-engineered.
The first thing you will notice is this
Whole ship is.
silver sink almost on the left-hand side.
Which will serve 2 purposes if you know a little bit about Xi'an lore. So Xi'an poop a little bit differently to humans, so they use that. We use our toilet. The whole door breaks into a load of pieces. The toilet roll holder sort of assembles itself.
With the most elaborate animation, I think, that's ever been put into a video game for toilets.
And again, it was just sort of a show of what's trivial to them is like elegance and high-class design to us. It was just a nice little feature. We wanted to incorporate that, sort of how they would live if they were on the ship and how humans would live on the ship.
As you go up into the cockpit, you then have a full open
third
space.
floor.
What I like to call the cathedral.
That is so cool,
the light
actually.
cascades down and you see the seat presented to you almost like an altar.
Doesn't even look like Star Citizen,
You enter
honestly.
the seat and you float up on your back, almost like you're about to launch into space on a rocket. And this massive mechanism of plates assemble behind you using Gatak to hold your seat in place. Really makes you feel like a badass just before you take off.
One of the best experiences in the
so
ship
cool.
is when you sit in that pilot seat and it kind of transforms and the ship moves around you to kind of put you up into a position within the canopy. With most of our ships, you sit horizontal to the gravity plane, whereas with this, you're sat on your back, kind of facing.
I will wonder, you know the hangars that you fly like in and out of like horizontally instead of vertically? I do wonder how landing in those is going to be. But aside from that, I really like the vertical takeoff. I think that's so cool.
Straight up to the stars.
The world is a completely different angle, and it gives a completely different feel to the ship.
For the art team, the vertical takeoff was great. It was one of the things that we were like super keen on getting in from the very start. It may have caused a few headaches for some of the other departments that we work with. There was quite a few people that kind of doubted whether or not it was going to function.
It looks like an Elite Dangerous, like a Thargoid ship almost, but
visually,
like
it gives such a nice kind of silhouette to the ship.
I like
Metal
the fact that we were applying very traditional technology in space exploration to something so advanced.
Flying it is one of those things, the first time you take off in it, your brain has to do a bit of recalibration compared to every other ship in the game.
If you look at the stars, you will see them going from up to down and not from left to right.
oh my god.
You still fly in the direction you're pointing. It's just that you land and take off essentially 90 degrees to what you are adjusted to. If you throttle forwards, you go up, but that's the direction the ship is pointed.
Obviously, Xi'an used Gatak quite a lot, and we wanted to make sure we leveraged that as much as possible. However, for things such as wings and thrusters, I think it's really important that we keep that to a minimum. If something's heavy, like, we can't rely on gravity to keep it on.
It has probably the most amount of maneuvering thrusters, I think, of a ship of this size, 24.
So cool.
That is simply to make it one of the most agile starter ships in the game and to cover the required maneuvering angles on a ship when it transforms. So once you've taken off and you retract the landing gear, the ship transforms slightly into a more expanded state, The three main thrusters change angle, the wings change angle, and then this requires the maneuvering thrusters to sort of compensate for that. So the amount of thrusters the ship has allows it to be pretty agile regardless of state, regardless of atmosphere or space.
Oh, I prefer the vertical takeoff compared to the normal. It's just a completely different feel, and you can land in tighter spaces.
My favourite part of the ship is definitely the way it transforms out of landing mode into deployed. All of the wings fold back, so the landing gear is actually built into the edges of each of the wings. At night, it's even cooler. All of the headlights move around because they're all animated on
Even
part
the
of the
headlights
wing,
look
and
so
so
cool.
does the light pop out of the end of the landing gear, which lights up those big pieces.
Landing it requires a little bit of adjustment compared to traditional flight in Star Citizen. You deploy your landing gear as you would, the ship transforms, the landing gear comes down. But instead of landing on your belly, you essentially land on your behind.
It kind of gives the nod back to some of our classic kind of modern day space shuttles, but it kind of gives a real unique experience on takeoff and landing.
It takes a little bit of getting used to, but the payoff is just the way the ship flies and the silhouette of it and just the unique feeling, making it feel really alien compared to our other ships.
Does look really good.
So being the first ship from the manufacturer Gatak that people were going to see in game, for me it was really important that it had a real impact on the player.
I think players will appreciate the fact of how much we've managed to fit into such a small platform.
So the Sulin is pitched as a starter ship, but it's sort of
I'm not saying it should be a combat ship. I'm just saying this thing is going to get destroyed in combat. So huge. That is a massive cross-section this thing has. And it has 2 size 1 shields. Personally, I would like to see a size 2 shield on this. I would still kind of consider the Cutlass Black a starter ship. Kinda. I mean, it's like more of like a high tier starter ship. Like you can be a starter ship with it. Like you can do starter ship things. I mean, I guess that applies to a lot of ships, but you get what I'm saying. This is a starter ship. I don't see anything wrong with throwing a size 2 shield on it. Maybe it couldn't fit. I don't know. There's really nothing wrong here. This thing should flee from combat rapidly if it ever engages it. That's all I'm going to say. This is, if you ever flew the Car2All before it was scary fast, this is how this is going to feel. I imagine it's going to be less maneuverable than a Car2All. But they did say it's going to be very maneuverable. We'll have to see. I don't think there's anything wrong. Again, I'm not trying to say they should whatever. It's just, I do think this thing is going to struggle if it ever sees combat.
Goes beyond some of our other starter ships.
Exploration
it has
ship.
A lot of onboard living, so it allows you to do a little bit of exploration, a little bit of pathfinding. It's not as good as...
But now my head just thought, imagine getting a heavy fighter version of this ship, like a Gatak heavy fighter or medium fighter. Oh my God, that'd be so cool. Especially in this kind of shape. That'd be so sick.
Dedicated explorers or pathfinders, but it is sort of better than...
Oh, they said
other starters
Pathfinder.
in
There
that
you go.
regard. The big unique factor of the Sulin is simply the visual style, being an alien ship.
I think we've not had very many opportunities to really show off what we can do with our alien races yet. And so this, for us, was a real opportunity to really distinguish that ship from our more human manufacturers.
The overall feel of the ship is far, far different to any other that came before it.
We tried to build a bit of mystery on how this thing works. It was quite exciting to try something different from the usual way we did spaceships.
The concept is completely striking, unlike anything I'd seen. Obviously, being a fan of vehicles full stop, regardless of whether they're a spaceship, ground vehicle, real or fictional, seeing this was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before, and I was desperate to be part of the construction of it.
Compared to our other starter ships, this is something entirely different, both flight and visual, and that sort of sets it apart from the others. If you just don't want to be run-of-the-mill Star Citizen player, then the Sulin is for you.
Be different. Run to your wallet right now. If you're watching online, call the number at the bottom of the screen. 1-800-SULIN. No, I'm just kidding. Yo, that felt like it could have been an ISC episode by itself. So we have 3 more things to look at. This is crazy. How long is this ISC?
The Crusader
10 minutes
Spirit
already
C1
in,
is
20,
the cargo
12
variant
minutes
of the
ago.
Crusader Spirit series. It swaps out the bomb bay, the central section of the ship, for a large cargo hold. It fits some of our ground vehicles in it, and it's really very much a purpose-built kind of cargo hauler. Just did a whole thing on the A1 at CitizenCon. It's basically that, but just with cargo. No. Nope. Nope. Nope.
Vehicle tractor beam as well, right?
The Spirit C1 is the cargo hauler of the Spirit family.
This is Crusader Industries' Cutlass competitor.
Its closest competitors are the Cutlass Black and the Freelancer. They're all roughly about the same size, the same cargo capacity. Compared to our other cargo ships in the game, this sits in sort of the lower half of straight.
I love that they're showing all these ships side by side, probably in response to all these people posting pictures of the Spirit on Reddit next to other bigger ships that they don't want, CIG doesn't want them comparing it to.
This sits in sort of the lower half of straight.
It does look like it fits there.
Cargo capacity.
Just
certainly compared to some of
wider.
the other Crusader ships like the Starlifters that carry a huge amount of cargo, this is on the lower end. You can put 32 SCU cargo crates in there, or you can put vehicles in there. It's not a dedicated vehicle hauler, but there are a lot of vehicles, Cyclone-sized and below, that will fit inside it. It utilises that central room to essentially be stripped out and filled full of cargo, and it can carry them internally, which affords that cargo some protection. So compared to, say, a Hull A, which has the same cargo capacity, you are trading off the quick access of being able to put it on the outside of the Hull A for the security of having it on the inside of the Spirit.
For the styling of the Spirit, we try to keep that Crusader DNA in there, so it's all very like sleek, continuous paneling with like little pockets of like high-tech greeble in there.
It's a lot like the Starlifter in visual style. I'll try to take all the good elements and fun elements of that, compact it down into a, not a small area, but a smaller area. So I stripped down the bomber variant of the Spirit, stretched out the floor detailing from the rear, especially the tracks, to make it suitable for vehicles to get in there. Made some big areas on the side so you can fit the really huge SCU containers on there. The walls, they've got a very specific shape, and that is so that those big containers can fit in there without hitting the edges. We're trying to keep that Crusader style in there as well. It's got some fun lighting in there to show off all the bits and gubbins.
It's all very nicely sandwiched.
You say nicely sandwiched?
Nicely sandwiched. So you've got like the bread, which is like the nice paneling, and then you've got like the filling, which is like all the nice black greeble. Greeble sandwich.
Being a Crusader ship, the Spirit C1 is an elegant cargo hauler. It looks fast, it is fast.
I feel like I'm being so quiet during this. I really don't have anything to say since, you know, I already did a whole video on the C1.
It's well armored, well armed for fast.
I do love that. That's so cool.
Cargo.
It's like Elite Dangerous deploying hard
So on the exterior, the main difference on the C1 versus the other variants is we've cleaned up the top of the ship.
You'll notice that the roof kind of switches out. So the C1 has more of like a sleek, like simplified roof.
It's a little bit more aerodynamic.
So to help you load cargo in and out of the ship, especially those larger cargo crate sizes, there is a tractor beam turret on the rear of the ship that can transform from being on top of the ship to help you grab cargo to around the underside of it to help you actually physically load it into the ship and arrange it onto the cargo grids within.
When we think about variants, I think it's personally important that we're not just talking about kind of a loadout change and about variants
into the ship and arrange it onto the cargo grids within.
The only thing I'll say is I really, really wish they would have made it easier to hold onto the box and swivel in. Like even if there was just like a button that you could continue to hold the box while you swivel in. If you've used this thing so far, it's a little awkward to turn around with the box. I know they do it here, but he like looks this way and then he hands down and then starts turning. And then on his screen, he's going to be facing downwards towards the ramp and he's going to have to yank it up and then push it in. So I don't know. It's fine how it is, but it's just a little dorky sometimes to work with.
Within.
When we think about variants, I think it's personally important that we're not just talking about kind of a loadout change and a tint palette change. For me, I think the more we can do with both the interior and the exterior to really sell the idea that this is a separate ship is kind of super important. With the Spirit, we've made some changes to the exterior and interior, as well as the normal loadout changes. And that, for me, just adds a little bit more value to what we class as a variant ship. It's not a case that we can always afford to do that for all of our ships, but where we can, that's the way we like to go.
So you've got the Cutlass Black for the Drake owners who like doing Drake things. You've got the Freelancer for the working class of the universe. And then if you want style and speed, then the Spirit C1's there. And you'll look a lot cooler doing it too.
I'm kind of surprised they're not framing the Gatak, the Sulin, in the framework of like in this family. If anything, that just means that there's probably going to be something that they do bring into that family that's more that size. It's just size-wise, they're like the same. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe next to each other, they're not close to the same size, but the Sulin just looks massive. It's really tall, that's for sure. The Storm! I already got to play with this.
One of the big questions we always get is, what changed from the concept and to the production model? And I think really with the Storm, Alberto just kind of nailed the concept from day one.
I'm not going to say that in public.
The concept is so good.
Because my concept was so good. Why? It's so cringe.
A humble developer. We all love it.
The Storm is a light tank from Tumbrl that values speed and agility over raw armor and firepower.
Tumbrl Storm is a light scout tank, a single-seater.
It's the Nova's smaller sibling. It's fast, it's light, it's still heavily gunned.
It's very agile, good for recon. You can cut through canyons like a motorcycle, or you can go off jumps, and there's plenty of clearance for the player to be able to really let it rip and enjoy the terrain.
Visually with the Storm, we really tried to kind of push the futuristic feel of Tumbrl as a manufacturer.
I think the overall design feels very much like the Batmobile from the Christopher Nolan universe, and
I think they nailed that.
I think with the Nova, we played it fairly safe with the kind of the art style and the overall forms. Whereas with the Storm, we really want to do something a little bit new, show that Tumbrl could not only deliver kind of advanced weaponry, but visually they could kind of advance what they're known for. The big kind of selling point of the Tumbrl visually, for me, has got to be the tracks and the track covers and those whole pods. They really kind of help to add a feeling of dynamic movement into the vehicle.
So compared to the...
I gotta be honest, I drove it for about 6 hours the other day. It's pretty stiff. Like right there, even when they're driving it, it looks pretty stiff. You see the tracks moving a little bit, but it's pretty stiff. Again, I did not have fun driving it. It's a fun thing to drive around. I just thought it was going to be a little bit more dynamic with the tracks and wheels, but or whatever they're called. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Yeah, maybe they need to give it a round 2. Yeah, we'll see.
Add a feeling of
it's fun though.
Movement
it's fast
into the vehicle.
So compared to the Nova, the Storm has quite an interesting enter-exit mechanic. So the whole front of the tank opens up in some sort of mouth-like contraption.
The whole front of the tank opens up and the seat kind of comes down and it kind of swallows you in.
The player sits on the seat that is presented to them and then
it is really cool.
Back within the ship.
When you kind of get sucked into this seat and the doors all close around you, it's just quite a unique experience.
It's kind of like you're wearing it.
You could say it's kind of like you're wearing it.
Like a mech?
Yeah. It's kind of got that feeling of a mech, but just the head.
Ah.
If you want to wear a tank, the Storm's for you.
I want mechs in games so bad.
There is no walkable interior compared to the Nova, so it is literally just you cocooned within inside the front of the tank.
And I think that really helps to make the vehicle feel super safe and secure when you're inside it. It gives you a lot of confidence that you're sat in something that's super strong and robust.
The driver controls the gun and everything aboard the vehicle, whereas the Nova can operate with one crew, but is best operated with 2 or 3 to share the load between all the additional weapons. For ground operations, they're designed to work in tandem together. The Storms to push ahead of the main ground force, to do some reconnaissance, figure out where the enemy is, figure out their strength, engage them if they are engaged, but then the Novas will take over to do the actual heavy lifting of the damage and engagement.
If you're looking for more speed, more maneuverability, the Storm kind of sits in a good spot where it's not quite a Cyclone and it's not quite a Nova, but it kind of sits in that middle part.
The gun is really cool. That took Nathan a couple weeks to come across, but as like one of his first projects with us, I think it was super successful.
Originally, it was supposed
I thought it was going to be a cannon.
Shooting bullets. We converted into an energy weapon after the fact. It's just more expensive to fire bullets. I think when it comes to a laser repeater, dollars to donuts, you know, shooting energy is much more cheaper than shooting bullets and twice as effective, so.
So my only comment on the Storm is it has this artificial arc on its angle, on its vertical for the turret that is locked at 40 degrees, and it makes it basically ineffective at using at any kind of anti-air. Like 60 would have been good. 40 is basically you're not going to anti-air with it. Or if you do, you're going to get really lucky. And I was wondering why. This is why. This is why it can't shoot upwards right here.
The Storm AA trades out the bespoke top-mounted turret for a fixed missile
That looks
array.
Gundam. That looks so
contains
Gundam.
A very large amount of size 1 missiles and a selection of size 2
Or like
missiles.
Armored Core.
You can now fire more missiles on this than anything else in the game currently.
So we're still working out the final numbers for this at the point of recording, but it's safe to say it has a lot of missiles.
So all at once you can fire a huge payload at your target.
You wouldn't want to be a ship near that thing because it has so many missiles.
What do you think the chances are that you can actually fire that many missiles at a time? Or if you're locked to 4? Surely they're not going to debate us, right? Surely I'm going to be able to go into the game tomorrow or whenever they put this in game, and I'm going to be able to fire 10 or so missiles at a time. How many was that here? Let's watch again. I'll even put it in slow motion. Oop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think 10. I may have missed one. So 10 missiles at a time. CIG, don't debate us. I want to see it in game.
Near that thing because it has so many missiles.
We try and envisage all the ways
there it
players
goes
are gonna
again.
use these vehicles. We're always surprised by what ends up in reality. So I think players are going to have lots of fun with this at sort of ground location like Ghost Hollow.
It is a light tank. It is pretty quick for a ground vehicle, but it still feels really strong.
Whilst the Storm is essentially as wide as the Nova, limiting it to being able to be carried in some ships, it is much, much less tall than the Nova. So a lot of ships, such as the Gatak, couldn't fit a Nova, can fit a Storm.
Look how many. I know this is in the same vein, I promise. Look how many rocks are on the ground out there.
A lot of ships, such as the Gatak.
Look how many rocks are on the ground in this picture alone. Rock, 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 rock. Cactus, 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 cactus. Listen, that's fine in certain biomes, but man, do I wish CIG would really make some big, I'm talking valleys, areas that are smooth to drive in. Man, roads would be killer, right? But I'll see you in 5-6 years. I don't know, man. I still think that tone down the rocks and like the plants and stuff. Now, trees are kind of different. I feel like you can't have too many trees because it's like, oh, it's a forest. That's really cool. But I feel like these plants and rocks still maybe a little too much. And it makes the driving experience on the ground, this is why I'm bringing this up, so much less. It's kind of why at Ghost Hollow here, they didn't really show them driving it around much because, well, there's not really a lot of area to drive around there. Now, given it's because of trees, but man, some of these places are pretty inaccessible to ground vehicles unless they're like very barren, like Sulin or Yella. Places like that have like the least. But anyway,
Nova can fit a Storm. I expect to see Storms popping up a lot more all over the place.
Anything that can fit a Nova can fit a Storm is what they said. Cool.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that the Tumbrl Storm,
I thought it was over.
or as I like to think of it, the tank that you wear, is arriving at IAE this year and bringing with it an all-new anti-air variant. That the Spirit C1 joins the fray, hoping to give all those Cutlass and Freelancer mains out there a pretty stylish glow-up. And that tomorrow, Xi'an manufacturer Gatak tells the entire universe to hold its carrion and rotted leaves as it introduces a brand new starter to the mix. I could really use a nice 3D printed full color mock-up here. Wouldn't it look good? You know? If anyone's asking. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share the process of game development with you. And we'll see you all here for IAE Part 2 next week.
Cool. Yeah, well done, CIG. I think everything looks really good. I think the starship looks good. I think that what did we do? The C1, obviously, I've shared my thoughts on this. I think it's a great ship. And both the Storms look really good. We'll have to see. We'll have to see if this week holds anything else for us. I have a theory it will. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you next time. And this is Berks signing off. Thanks for joining.